It's Friday, January 27th, 2023. Hope you're doing well out there. Happy Friday. We made it. Opening up with tobacco. Juul looking to explore sale, investment partnerships, something. Altria Group controls 35% of the company as is. A deal with other companies like Philip Morris and Japan Tobacco, whoever it may be, would frankly really complicate things and get things pretty messy. What are you guys thinking? I miss Juul, I miss it.
I mean, I feel like Altria was about ready to buy the whole thing and then said,
Yeah.
no, we shouldn't. In fact, we're going to write it down. So I think Altria is not going to buy it. I think Philip Morris probably won't buy it either. I think Swedish Match is better. I think they're just making Japan Tobacco maybe pay a little bit more. Ultimately, I think that Juul will not get sold.
I mean, do we think, how much do we think that Altria bought that just to kill it?
I 100% think that. I also have some real questions about the mysterious lung disease that was affecting people right before COVID that was blamed on Juul. Because people forget, right before COVID broke out, they were like, oh, these people who are juuling suddenly have the lungs of an 80-year-old man. And then we had a global pandemic where you got a disease that made you have the lungs of an 80-year-old man. And I think Juul partially took the fall for that. So, that's just a conspiracy theory, Tom, but I think it's possible that COVID hit a little bit earlier and it got blamed on Juul.
Or maybe Juul manufactured COVID, makes you think. Nobody's talking about that. Let's jump into some of the data that we just got coming through the wire. Specifically, we've got PCE, we've got consumer data coming through. Tom, what are we seeing?
So the core, the PCE deflator year over year came in at 5%, which was the estimate. And that's down from 5.5%. So we're still another feather in the hat of the inflation coming down, perhaps a little bit faster than expected. Though the month over month was actually up. The expectation was for it to be flat, but month over month we're actually at 0.1. So sort of a mixed bag on the inflation front. We're seeing a little bit of a sell-off in bonds as a result, but this one's really not, compared to GDP or CPI or even the jobs report, I feel like the PCE deflator number is not necessarily the biggest one, but it is one to keep an eye on. So year over year, that puts the core PCE at roughly 5%, which I think is about in line with everyone thinks where inflation kind of is right now.
But we are seeing some reaction from the bond side.
Yeah, we're seeing some selling off, 10 years off about 3 basis points. So not a great reaction there. I think people were hoping it would come in even cooler, just given the numbers we've seen. So coming in line probably is seen as less progress than anticipated. But 3 basis points compared to the moves we've seen in the last 12 months is nothing. And we've seen days where we've seen the 10-year move 30 basis points on a report like this. So pretty muted.
We're sending tanks to the Ukraine, sending 31 M1 Abrams tanks. It's kind of wild. We're coming up, I guess we've maybe passed the 1-year anniversary of this conflict. It's kind of weird to me how often I just kind of forget it's still going. What do you think strategically the U.S. is trying to accomplish here, or is it just kind of, we'll throw a whole bunch of money and some equipment here on an ongoing basis in perpetuity?
I think it's deterrence. I think right now they see Russia a little bit behind. I think they see the opportunity to really make sure that Russia doesn't get any further. And I think that they're going to. I think that's the play.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast that was kind of getting into the dynamics of what's going on over there, and one of the experts was saying that the biggest issue that the Ukrainians have is they don't have big vehicles like that, and so in terms of taking back or being offensive, like taking back land that's already been lost, they can only really move as fast as their soldiers can walk. And so I think that's a little bit of this, which is that they can start being a little bit more aggressive on the offensive side, pushing back the front line, because it's basically just evolved into trench warfare. And one side has tanks and the other side just has people.
I may walk like a tank, but I'm not as fast as one.
Yeah.
Ben. Yeah, not yet. Just hang in there. Let's talk a little bit about some of the earnings reports that came through. What's standing out? What companies are most interesting?
Yeah, we'll just hit you with 3 today. Visa, American Express, Intel. We did get some news from HCA the hospital system. They've been also in the news because the CEO gets paid a lot of money. Newsflash, hospital CEOs get paid a lot of money, whether you're working at the largest public hospital chain, HCA, or many other private companies. You can find all that information if you know where to look. I think it's on there, whatever the charitable form is. But they have to disclose that anyway. But the other ones, Visa said that the consumer remains stable. They still forecast no recession. They actually see some potential for acceleration in the back half of the year on a reported basis because the Russia comp is going to fall off because they took a big hit over the last 3 quarters because of Russia. They're going to have one more of those, and then you're going to comp over more normal periods. Additionally, foreign exchange is going to become less of a headwind. It already is becoming less of a headwind. And then finally, China's beginning to open up, and they're starting to see some travel growth in China, which would be the next leg of the travel stool, which is really what is driving Visa's revenue growth overall. But big takeaway there is no real issues in terms of consumer payments falling off. In fact, they've actually accelerated a little bit here in January, although that's partly because of the Omicron comp from last year. American Express was even better, if you can believe that. They're actually looking for revenue to be up 15 to 17% this year. I think the estimate was looking for 11.5%, so well above estimates there. They are reserving a little bit more on the loan side, but travel and entertainment spend is extraordinarily strong. And then finally, Intel was it's down 10%. They're seeing sales of PCs that are down 40%. Their revenue's down 40%. That's going to be an acceleration from being down 33% this quarter. Their gross margin is utterly abysmal. Their gross margin is down in the 30s. This is a company whose gross margin should be in the 60s. I'm astonished they're having even close to profitability, because the gross margin decline is apocalyptic, really. I mean, it's apocalyptic. And the guy says, Pat Gelsinger says that the investors should rest assured. That's what he said on the conference call last night. And I don't think anyone's resting assured right now. I think that maybe they even have to cut the dividend.
I mean, a little inside baseball, but we've probably spent the entire summer of 2021 trying to figure out if Intel was a company worth investing in. And ultimately we decided to divest entirely from it. But that was quite a conversation. And it's amazing just how quickly it's fallen apart. But that was a major piece of research I mean, it was months of
back and
really annoying conversation.
What's notable is that this is coming with them getting money from the government.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's wild.
They're terrible.
Interesting story out of the UK where their migration projections have increased significantly, which is raising their GDP expectation. Ben, you're our resident advisor to the EU, and you got married over there. Tell us what's going on.
Renewing my British passport.
Yeah, you boosted the GDP.
I think it's just interesting to hear the dichotomy. There's a lot of articles being written saying how dare anyone really think that Brexit was good for the UK. You're just sleeping under a rock, but migration accelerating in the UK kind of speaks to the fact that UK is a place that people want to go to. It's a little bit different than the EU, and for at least 250,000 people per year, I think that's good. So it's good news for the UK. It's good news for their growth, because growth is a function of number of people living in the country and number of people working. So that's good news for them as they try to navigate out of what they forecast to be a pretty severe recession, but so far holding in okay.
Ben, I know in our Teams chat this morning, you were pretty bullish on some of the companies in the oil space. What do you see in there that's getting jacked up?
Yeah, I mean, oil really moving higher. It looks like that we've seen the early moves on oil prices going up as a result of the China reopening. And so Brent crude is already at $88. WTI is at 82. You've probably seen that at the gas pump. And I think that's really good for some oil field servicers. A lot of them are approaching breakout levels. So we're watching that very intently. I'm curious to see what happens next.
Kind of wrapping up this week. What else are you guys keeping an eye on? What's
auto delinquency is going up
big time?
Yeah, we got University of Michigan sentiment this afternoon too. I guess 10 o'clock.
Yeah, so I'm very curious to see what happens there. I think that's probably on the auto side is where people overextend the most in terms of credit. And if you start to lose your jobs and you're working in Silicon Valley and you have a Tesla, It's tough to finance that finance that $900,000 a month payment when you don't have any income.
Yeah, and I think this is maybe a good read through of how the health of Carvana too, which is one of the headline companies circling the drain. If people start defaulting on autos, a lot of them were bought at Carvana on credit at extremely high prices during the pandemic, and now Carvana's going to end up holding the bag.
I'm surprised Carvana's still around. I mean, I thought they were it was a race to the bottom between them and Bed Bath & Beyond. I think Bed Bath & Beyond beat them.
Well, they announced default yesterday. It's not in the morning Zoom notes this morning, but Bed Bath & Beyond was notified that they have defaulted on their debt. So
they did it.
That's the end. That's the beginning of the end for Bed Bath & Beyond. That might have been the fastest. Hey, we might be in trouble. To we're now defaulting on our bonds.
Yeah,
in the history of companies that were like that.
We got to try to get our boy. What was his name? Lucky Lopez.
Yeah,
we got to try to get Lucky again.
Yep,
got to try to get him. Wild week, lots going on. Seeing real divergence. I mean, I think among the performance of these companies as they're reporting earnings, and you still have certain significant tones and themes, but really seeing operations at a premium, it seems.
Yeah, management teams at a premium, and by and large, probably a bit weaker than expected.
Yep.
And it seems that the companies that have relied the most on increasing prices because inflation was high are now getting punished because they can't do that anymore, and it's just not. It's not feasible. I mean, Diageo is a great example of that.
Yeah, definitely. All right, we'll wrap it up there. We will be back Monday at 8:30. Hope you guys have a great weekend. We'll talk to you soon.